What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fringe. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you enjoyed some great weather wherever you are. I know here in Calgary, things were fantastic. And aside from those little white fluff things that fly all over the place when the dandelions are polluting the air, it was a great weekend, nice and warm here in Calgary, Alberta. As we jump in and catch up with the chat, I hope you guys again are having a great time. We got a lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to get into it. It's going to be juicy. Let's jump in. Tech West, this is simply unacceptable. Well, that's the way we like it. Welcome into our small fringe minority. I hope you are enjoying the stream tonight. Arthur, okay, coming in from Black Diamond, Alberta, not too far from where I am. I love Black Diamond, gorgeous little town. Welcome into the stream, Arthur. Hope you're doing. Talking tennis comes in. Voting won't help. We need a new system. Well, to each their own. I think voting helps. I think what you need when it comes to voting is good policy. You need somebody. Part of what I'm doing with my mayoral run is I'm running not as a politician. I'm running as a citizen who's been down on the front lines with other citizens who knows what actual hardworking people want. I'm not bought and paid for by companies. I'm not giving people kickbacks. I think we need more people starting in at the low end tiers of the spectrum to work their way up the ladders and influence school boards, to influence PTA, not PTAs. When you look at like residential boards, when you look at anything in your communities, anything that requires any kind of board to get in, to voice your opinions. Contacting MLAs, I agree, doesn't work because I don't think MLAs really care unless it's something that's going to blow up on their Twitter feeds. I think what you need are people who are going to listen. The thing about voting, and the thing people don't realize about voting, is when you look at the voter turnouts, they're so low these days that if half the people who complain about politics got off their butt and voted for somebody different than the mainstream vote, we would see change. And we would see that these folks who sit there and think that their votes are going to be handed to them, that it's going to be an easy win, would start to have to care if they wanted to keep their jobs, simply because people would be showing they have the ability to remove them from those jobs if they don't get their act together. So I can understand why the frustration of saying voting won't help. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think that the circumstances are what needs to change, not necessarily the fact that voting doesn't work. Tech West again with Mr. Mayor. Well, not yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Buckle up. Things now with Danielle Smith winning her election on Monday. It's going to get ramped up and rowdy in Calgary, and the gloves are coming off. So get ready because it's going to be fun. I'm looking more forward to running for mayor now with Danielle Smith behind the helm. I think it's going to be great. Patty Nelson, welcome to the stream coming in. So let's get that crazy bitch going back to work in Alberta. I don't think she's going back to work. We're gonna talk about that. If you're talking about Hinshaw, we're gonna get into that in the stream. We need to take back control from these agenda-driven politicians. Yes, and that is what needs to be done. This is why I'm saying that regular Joes, and I got into it on last week's stream, that I'm only running because I put out a joke tweet. I jokingly put out a tweet against Gondek back in February and said, hey, maybe I should run for mayor because clearly you don't need to know what you're doing to do this job. You're doing a great job of ruining the city and you don't know a damn thing about what you're doing. And I mean, only because of the success of what I've done with my job in the last year, I was contacted by counselors and they said, well, were you serious? And I said, no. And then they said, well, could you be? Because they know what people are wanting right now. And what they're wanting are people that aren't tied to politics, people that aren't tied to politicians. So I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who's running for the job because I'm sick and tired of the good old boys running and getting in and screwing it all up and taking advantage of the situation. And we need more people that are going to do that. I've jokingly said I'm going to reach out to my good friend Andy Lee and see if I can convince her to maybe run for a city councilor job, but we need more like-minded people to run. And other cities, you should be encouraging this kind of behavior from your local citizens. Anybody who's going to complain about politics or say, I've had enough, we need a change, say, so why don't you run for counseling, for city councilor? Why don't you run for your area and try to make some change? I think that's what's going to do it. And I'll tell you, I didn't really take it serious until I went and sat with Jordan Peterson. And he talked about how it has to start at the lower end of the spectrum. A bunch of people say, well, we need a new prime minister, or we need a new premier in the province. While, the province does pass laws that typically affect your life more than the federal government, it's too high up the ladder. You need change at the low levels before you can get change at the higher levels, because those low level changes will influence the higher ups as time goes on. At least that's the way I see it. I could be wrong. I'm no expert, but that's what I'm trying to run on as we ramp up to get into election season here in Calgary. Arthur's been subscribed for several months now, and I'll admit it was a cool arcade games that first got my attention. I appreciate that. Something cool I want to show about that. We're going to get into that in 1 second. Let me just get caught up with the chat here. Theo coming in. Did we lose Dina Hinshaw out there in BC? Can't imagine Alberta wants her back. We're going to get into that as well. Give me 1 second here. That's the one. Arthur's saying I agree. Patty's saying I like that you're not a career politician, and I don't need to be. And that's the funny thing, is that a lot of city councilors, there was one that said to me, well, I wish you wouldn't run because I was planning on running in this election. And I said to them, well, you can run when I'm done, because I'm not going to sit for the long haul, and I'm not going to, I'll run for as long as I'm convinced that there isn't somebody else who's going to uphold what I've done. As soon as I find somebody else that wants to think on the same level as me, I'll leave. And the first thing I want to change when I get into City Hall, by the way, aside from these preposterous laws that allow men to change in front of women and children, is I don't think city councilors should be allowed to determine their own raises. Is it just me? Am I the only one who thinks it's crazy that they go in once a year and say, you know what? I've been working my butt off. I need a little bit more money, and I'm just going to give it to myself. How many jobs are there out there in the world where you get that opportunity, where you can have that luxury to just say, I'm just going to give myself a raise? Imagine if you could do that at your job tomorrow. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, one thing I got up to over the weekend, and one thing that I found very frustrating over the weekend, I'm not talking about getting my ass handed to me by Clyde Do Something over on Street Fighter 6. Although he did. He's good. He's good at Street Fighter. Part of my arcade here, I've been doing some mods. So I've run out of room in my home arcade, and of course I can't put anything else down here unless, I want to sell some machines off or take over another room of the house, which I don't think my wife will allow me that opportunity. I did run into a old 1980s track and field arcade last week that I passed up on because I don't have it in me to get rid of any of the machines I have. I currently like the machines I have. But I did so instead of buying new machines, I've been putting my time into upgrades of what I currently have. One machine that's sitting right over here behind me on my left is my At Games Legends pinball, digital pinball. Now, I love this machine. It's probably gets the most play out of anything in my game room, but there was one problem with it. And I'm going to share in on the screen right now this image. This is what a stock At Games Legends pinball looks like. So you've got your digital playfield down here, right? This is just a Star Wars table, obviously. Again, this is a stock photo. This isn't mine, but this was just to give an idea of what I've done to this machine. So you've got a nice 32-inch playfield at 1080p. It works well. I'm not gonna. People sometimes poo-poo all over digital pinball, but I'll be honest. A real pinball table requires a hell of a lot of maintenance. The parts wear very quickly. Capacitors go out. The boards need replacing. It's a very expensive hobby, and one that I'm not really educated in enough to get into. So digital pinball, and not only that, but the cost of an actual pinball machine is somewhere usually between $12,000 to $15,000, depending on the machine that you're wanting, especially some of the ones that I'm looking at by Stern. I like the Stern Godzilla table. I like their Ninja Turtles table. There's a lot of stuff Stern's put out that, even the Mandalorian table, I'd love to jump on that, but they're about $12,000 to $15,000. And I just can't justify buying a $15,000 pinball table. So the cool thing about this table, you'll notice at the top here, this white wire that this person has coming out of theirs. You can hook in a PC via HDMI and upload your own tables. Now, one thing I've done on my pinball machine is I've added about 500 tables. all from the 90s, the time I grew up, all the machines I've played, all the Bally, the Williams, the Stern tables that I've played over the years. But the problem I had was this back glass. So you'll see up here, this came stock with, now it had the little At Games logo down here, which is where a DMD, which is this scoreboard, usually sits. And up here was only like a 15-inch monitor. So, I mean, it worked. I didn't mind using it, but I had to find a solution. So what did I do? Well, I went and ordered from the Buy Stuff store. The good old Buy Stuff store. Buy Stuff store is a great site. I'm a big fan of what they sell, but they sell a modification. And they sell this new item called the back box. And I would encourage anybody who gets into digital pinball. Now, this is an expensive upgrade. I will point out it's a very expensive upgrade. Runs about $800 Canadian to get this upgrade, but boy, is it worth it. Now you see the difference down here. You got your DMD on the bottom, a 24-inch monitor up from the 15-inch that was stock. But I also ordered a haptics kit and a subwoofer to go underneath with an amplifier, and the machine kicks now. It's amazing. It feels a lot more like real pinball. Now, as I start this video clip, I took some videos of some of my favorite machines. Here I was playing Tales from the Crypt over the weekend. Definitely love this table. Love everything about it. And again, it's not real pinball, but it feels pretty damn close when you have this back box connected to it with the subwoofers, with the haptics. Adam's Family, another one of my favorite tables from the 90s. One that I used to play at my local theater a lot. I had that one playing a lot on the weekend as well with the new back box. AC/DC, one of my favorite Stern tables. Metallica is another one that I've got on my playlist that I play quite a bit. Even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the Stern table. Again, these tables are thousands of dollars. Now, all in, if you buy one of these machines and do the back box mod from Buy Stuff Store, you're probably looking about anywhere, depending on the price of the Legends pinball, because sometimes they go on sale. Sometimes you can get them at a good price. But if you were to do everything all in, you're under $2,000. Now, I say under $2,000 because I had the PC from changing up or upgrading to a new PC. I had a PC that I could connect and put underneath, but it is definitely worth the money, I think, because now I own hundreds and hundreds of pinball tables. I can add tables anytime I want. Anytime I find them, it's very easy to do so. And now I don't really like talking arcades much on the channel because I used to cover arcades. But it was a lengthy mod, and one that I was really glad to do. I think it really makes the pinball machine look better. I think it's fantastic. And yeah, just really, really, really an enjoyable mod. And I think it really adds to the machine. I think it was great. Let's get caught up with the chat anyways, folks. That was my weekend. That was aside from getting my ass handed to me by Clyde on Street Fighter, that was my weekend. Arthur, a good government starts from the ground up. Absolutely agree. Do not sell your games. I will not be, especially my Donkey Kong Jr. I just restored that arcade. That one's staying for good. Joe Lyman coming in. What is up, my brother from another mother? How you doing, Joe? Welcome into the stream. Mystical jumping in. Imagine if Godzilla ever got drunk. Instead of your security allowance as mayor, you can purchase a pinball table and call it square. Maybe. Arthur, pins are very expensive. You have a steel ball hitting and bouncing off of everything, damage will happen. Yes. And that's partially why digital, to me, a lot of people say, wow, it's not the real thing. People say that about emulation with video games too, like when you emulate all the old NES games and stuff like, well, it's not real hardware. I don't care. I just want to have fun. And to me, this is very fun. Trish coming in with a 550 super chat. Thank you very much, Trish. Learned about you from Clyde's Life podcast. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Cartree coming in. Cheers from Red Deer. Rock for Mayor. Excited for signed copies of the series. C11 is full effect. Can't say the T words against allegations resurf. We'll get into that. And as for signed copies, again, I'll get that set up this week. Again, my weekend was just preoccupied. I'll get a Shopify set up or an Etsy or something along those lines this week. I will make an announcement on Twitter. I'll also make an announcement on next week's stream as to where people can purchase signed copies from me. Amazon has upped the cost. They have increased the cost of printing all of my books. I believe when The Prime Minister Stole Freedom first came out, we were priced at $15. And all three of my books are now sitting at $19.99 on Amazon simply because Amazon charges more. Now, one thing I've offered to do is I will purchase books from Amazon at my cost and then sell them and ship them myself. So they'll probably be around $20 each still. But the benefit now is that people can support me more direct than Amazon, and they can get a signed copy while doing so. So at least they're getting something a little extra for the price going up. And I'm happy to do that for anybody who wants those in their collection. So that will be coming, and looking forward to it. It's YouTube banned my ability to super chat. I'm sorry to hear that, but that's okay. Super chats are not mandatory. They're just greatly appreciated. So appreciate the sentiment, Cartry. Thank you so much. Dragon's Lair, my all favorite game. Played it when it debuted back in 1983. I love Dragon's Lair, which is why Arcade 1-Up has the 3/4 scale similar to the Marvel Capcom or the Blitz. iArcade just has a better cabinet, and I really like the look of the Dragon's Lair, as well as the Don Bluth approved artwork that's on the side of this cabinet. So that's why I got this one over the replica Dragon's Lair. I've never thought about the maintenance on a pinball machine. My wife won't give me $12,000 either, not even on a motorbike, which I obviously need. Not sure what for, but I kind of need one. Well, hey, you never know. Maybe you get her in a good mood one day. She'll cave. Maybe she'll get in. It's Playboy in the 80s at our local arcade was a hit. I've got both Playboy tables on this pinball machine. The original as well as the Stern Playboy table that came out in the early 2000s. When are you accepting donations and signatures for your runs of mayor? That will come once a campaign kicks off or once we start getting signatures to get things through. Unfortunately, we can't start that process until I believe it's roughly 12 months prior. I'll have to check again. Or if the mayor's recalled. Now, there will be announcements for that, Tech West. So keep your ears peeled, and we'll keep your ears peeled. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll we'll make announcements as soon as I can. I promise. There's so much to consider that I'm not experienced in when it comes to this stuff. And before we accept anything, before we do anything, I'm going to have my good friend Keith Wilson, who was also here for our live stream, take a look at the laws, what needs to be done. I want to make sure everything's done by the book, and that the money that we're taking is strictly for campaign. It's not going to anything else, and that people know where the money's going. I want transparency, and I want to run a clean campaign. So we'll keep you up to speed as soon as that happens. Megan jumping in. Megan, thank you so much. And Megan became a member last stream. Thank you for that, Megan. No notice about the stream tonight. Had to search specifically. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. YouTube does a great job at suppressing. You'd think for a platform that they're starting to lose people to sites like Rumble that they would want to encourage people to go watch live streams. Hope everyone's had a great weekend so far. Megan, I hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into the stream. That's since I'm local, I prefer to do it through Etsy, considering the risk of damage. Absolutely. Well, again, I'll be shipping everything personally. So whether it's Shopify, Etsy, however it's set up, I will be the one shipping them, and we'll have coverage on those shipments. D-Rock for Mary, I appreciate that. Did the price go up universally? Yes. So Amazon sent out an email, which I tweeted out a few weeks ago, saying that as of June 1st, copies were going up. And that they've never increased their prices, and that this was just something people would have to deal with. And ultimately, it was Amazon's decision. And it sucks. It really sucks, because what people don't realize sometimes when they're just shopping on the site is if they saw it like a week ago and then they go on there now and see it, they'll assume that, I raised the price, that it's greed or something along those lines. This is just a company making their money. And if it turns people away, it's unfortunate. I hope not. But good old Amazon, hard at work. I held off to buy all of them signed. I will keep you up to speed as soon as I get that set up. I will get that done this week, I swear. I like the idea of selling signed copies. An outstanding move. Joe, thank you so much, man. That's Tech West with a $22 super chat. My God, thank you for the support. Appreciate all your effort, Derek. Thanks for doing what you do. Thank you for doing what you do, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Is it a huge increase? Well, so the books again, our books were priced between $15.99 and $17.99. They're universally $19.99 now. So, I mean, they've only gone up a couple of dollars, but at a time when people are struggling to pay their bills and some people, entertainment is a luxury at the end of the day. And whether it's books, whether it's video games, whether it's movies, however you want to do things, I don't agree with nickel and diming people. I don't like putting my things behind a paywall, but much like any business, you got to make money. And Amazon just simply said, we're going to change the pricing of these books. So I guess Amazon wants to make more money. And yeah, but again, that's why I'm offering my signed copies. That's why I'll set that up so that at least if people are paying, $22, whatever the shipping is going to run me. If people are paying around $20 a book, at least they're getting something bonus by having signed copies, personalized copies, you name it, for their collections. I can at least offer an alternative to what I find more suitable for the money anyways. Mystical, is it me or does Jeff Bezos look like he spends most of his time thinking of ways to kill Superman? Maybe he does look a little like Kevin Spacey in Superman Returns. Been a great weekend. We had an annual Black Diamond Parade yesterday. Awesome. Hopefully it wasn't one of those risky parades where you see strippers in front of children. YouTube has been excellent for me since my last suspension. Received notification. Well, I'm glad you got your notification. That's good. Have people complained about the price increase, or is this just a personal worry? Well, it's a personal worry because the problem, Joe, is that anytime like I put out on stream last week that our shirts were available, that we had new merchandise, which down below the video, you can see our shop linked now, but I don't know if it does it on live streams, but it is below every video. It does have our shop linked to the YouTube page where, if you look at our new logo, our new Unacceptable Fringe logo, we now have hats, we have hoodies, we have everything else. And when I advertised those last week and just mentioned, hey, look, I brought it up during the election stream that, hey, I don't have sponsors. And if I ever want to increase the benefits of this channel or buy new equipment or do anything, it's part of the game. We got to make money. And I just said, we've offered these new products. So we're not sponsored. So if you really want something that looks good, I've ordered probably about $200 worth of merch. As soon as we changed our logo, I think it looks fantastic. I think the clothes are going to come out really good. So I simply just said, you guys do this. And the comments I got after, you're a grifter. You're such a grifter. Oh, look at the grift. Look at you begging for money. And I'm offering a product. So my concern when it comes to the books is that people will see the increase and go, look at the grifter. Look at him begging for more money. It's the problem seems to be enterprise these days in any job. When you do these things, people get mad at you. They get mad at your success. They get mad that you have to charge people for things. I guess a lot of people think things should just be free. I don't know. Like I hear it all the time. Like I used to, when how the Prime Minister Stole Freedom took off, and I put out a tweet saying, hey, we're still at #1. Go grab your copy. People said, grifter. Do you want it for free? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Like I often tell people, I asked a guy once, what do you do for a living? And he said something like, I work in retail. And I said, well, then go to your job and work for $0 all day. And then come home and tell me how you're going to keep the lights on and put food in the fridge and clothe your children and all these other things. This is a job like any other job. And I hate to say it like that because I don't want to seem like I'm about the money, because I'm certainly not. But I hate the implication that as soon as the increase goes in, it looks like you're nickel and diming people and not the corporation. So it is what it is. Anyways, last year I bought 2 books of How Trudeau Stole Freedom and my 2 brothers, for my 2 brothers' birthdays. They loved it. I'm glad to hear that, Trish. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Timo, I loved your election coverage. Timo, I love that you were here for the election coverage. Thank you so much. No, absolutely no rainbow flags in our small town parade. Well, that's good that you were able to enjoy it at least. Take pride in the label. Anything less is pro commie. Yeah, well, it's crazy how things work sometimes. It's crazy. Now, as for what's coming this week and what came last week, if you guys tuned in last Friday or Thursday, sorry, I dropped my video on the salt that was coming out post election with the barrage of tweets of people saying, I hope you die. I hope Albertans die for not voting NDP. We saw all these people saying they should pay my taxes. It's a great video. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. But now we're seeing Dr. Dina Hinshaw. Now, I won't pull up the article because I do have a video coming out tomorrow based on it. But we seen last week, there was a leak. My good friend and friend of the channel, Theo Fleury, I seen a tweet. I opened up Twitter and it's, what's Theo mad about? And you see him saying, Danielle, we're not off to a good start if you're hiring back Dr. Dina Hinshaw. And my jaw hit the floor. And I thought I woke up in the Twilight Zone because I'm sitting here saying, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why would Dina Hinshaw be coming back to Alberta when she just went to BC and signed a contract over there? Now, for the longest time, for that day, a lot of people losing their minds, people tweeting it out, people talking about it. And I really tried to take a step back and think about it for a second and think about who actually hires Dina Hinshaw if she comes back to the province. And the one thing that people were doing instantly is blaming Danielle Smith. However, the place we should be looking to is Alberta Health Services, because they're the ones ultimately that make the decision to hire somebody like Dina Hinshaw. And when you look at Alberta Health Services, well, they're linked to QP, which Rachel Notley's husband is also one of the big wigs over there. And I started to say, well, hold on, until we know more about this, I'm going to pass judgment. I didn't tweet it out. I didn't tweet out anything saying, oh my God, I can't believe this. I kind of waited and watched as people were tweeting. And sure enough, over the weekend, now let's bring up Cian Bexty's Twitter. Good old Cian Bexty put everybody's fears to rest. Sorry, guys. I should be a little bit more prepared. There was so much I wanted to talk about tonight, and I covered this in my story, and then for some stupid reason, I shut down the Twitter link. But let's do a screen share. This is the great thing about being live, is I can just make you guys sit and wait. I'm just kidding. I don't like making you wait. Let's jump in here. Cian Bexty talking about an official statement from AHS claims Dr. Dina Hinshaw is not employed by AHS following widespread outcry over her apparent rehiring by a health authority. Sources with direct knowledge of the situation now say that the memo that had come out last week has been fabricated. But there's a bigger problem with that memo that came out. The memo in question that came out last week was a memo that said, let's welcome her back. She was going to be in charge of an indigenous branch of the medical field, and to welcome her back starting June 5th, which of course is tomorrow. It was going to be a Monday start date. But Marty up north, who had his tweet about it, said that apparently what he found out, or was to believe, was that the NDP had jumped the gun thinking they were winning the election and went and did some backdoor deals apparently to hire Dina Hinshaw back. And then the NDP lost the election. So now AHS is saying she's not employed, although Cian Bexty has found she has an Alberta AHS email address that is listed as active with no replies to those emails. And Danielle Smith saying that everything's been fabricated. So it starts to make me wonder if this in fact was Rachel Notley and her husband jumping the gun. It really shows you all these people that were voting for Notley saying this is all about trust and it's all about leadership and it's all about being able to provide for the people of Alberta. But we're going to hire back the doctor who locked you all in your homes for 3 years while taking a $500,000 salary, who should be in prison. Could you imagine if Rachel Notley would have won that election and then 4 days later they announced that Dina Hinshaw's coming back? What a mess. Here's my question. How many of those NDP votes do you think would have had buyer's remorse within those 4 days? I think they would have set a record for buyer's remorse. I think, Jesus. It's sister-in-law told me she was going to pay for healthcare because of UCP win. I said, no, that is not going to happen. It can't happen. It can't. We have the Health Act in Canada, which we're not allowed to pay for healthcare. Now, when we talk about the privatization of healthcare, I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm not sure how. The thing about Danielle Smith's proposal is I'm going to wait to see. But anything like you see, Marty Up North talked about this on Clyde Stream during election time, and he had a very good point when we were talking about ambulatory care. Ambulance times were down going into election season, and Danielle Smith had definitely brought that up a number of times. And how Marty put it forward was that he had a friend who drove as a paramedic, and what he was told was that paramedics, when they used to pick people up, he used somebody overdosing as an example. And he said a paramedic would pick somebody up on an overdose, take them to the hospital, and if the hospital wait time was, say, 4 hours to see a doctor, that paramedic would have to stay with the patient until a doctor signed off care, and they could hand off the patient and get back on the streets and pick up the next person who needed help. So it was holding up the paramedics from doing their jobs. So what Danielle Smith did back in February, I believe it was she amended the act so that paramedics could now hand off to a nurse and get back on the roads, meaning that as soon as they got to the hospital, they hand off to the first available nurse, they sign the papers, get back in their ambulance, and they get back to work, drastically reducing wait times for an ambulance, which in turn saves more lives. Good thing. So for a long time, and it's not just Danielle Smith, they've been talking about the privatization of healthcare. And what I believe the proposal for that is that if you were to see a specialist, for example, Clyde constantly makes fun of the fact that I keep saying that when I took my one chip challenge, I'm making excuses. But I went to the doctor last week and he took a look at my tonsils because I've told you guys when I did the one chip challenge, I had strep. And my left tonsil is inflamed. And since March, we've been trying to get rid of this form of strep. I've had to take 4 different antibiotics that will not remove the strep. And he's even told me that a lot of doctors these days, because of wait times, because of everything else, unless both of my tonsils are inflamed and causing a blockage in breathing, they don't like to schedule surgery to remove your tonsils, even though now it's in and out day surgery. It's invasive. It's because it adds to wait times for people that need actual surgeries. So he's now scheduled me to go and see somebody about my throat to make sure that there's nothing bad happening with it. And he's told me it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months or 8 months to see somebody. So what I believe Danielle Smith has proposed, and again, I could be wrong, but the proposal back when Stelmach was premier and Redford was premier was something along the lines of you can have the option to pay to see private specialists if you need to see one sooner than later, who can then expedite your needs to get surgery. I remember my mom had a problem years ago before she passed when she had a bone in her foot that was growing in the wrong direction. And it was causing her immense pain, and she could hardly walk on her foot. She had to walk with a cane for quite some time. And then crutches because she couldn't put any pressure on her foot. And the doctors acknowledged right from the beginning she needed surgery. It was some kind of graft they had to do to put the bone back in place. So they actually had to break her foot and reconstruct the bone so that it wasn't growing out of place from a previous fracture. And it took her 2.5 years to get the surgery. So those wait times are ridiculous. Now, part of that is because of unions, red tape. Anytime you hear people talk about the NDP and say, well, they fund healthcare. No, they fund unions that fund healthcare, and a lot of bigwigs get bonuses. When it comes to healthcare in general, when it comes to at least Calgary, I don't know about Edmonton, but I've seen it in Calgary, and I have friends who work for the hospitals in Calgary. Hospitals are understaffed. They're undersupplied. They don't have the resources they need. They don't have the budgets they need, while top doctors take huge payouts, huge bonuses, and surgeries are pushed back. And this was long before COVID. So Rachel Notley had her opportunity to fix the healthcare system when she was in charge of the province for 4 years, and she did nothing. In fact, she made it worse. So what Danielle Smith is talking about is an opportunity for people to pay to play, so to speak, if they need something urgently. So I know in the situation of my mom, and I'll use that as the example, had she have been offered, you could pay $1,000 and go see a specialist in a private practice who can expedite your surgery. She would have paid it and saved herself 2.5 years of pain. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what Danielle Smith is proposing, but it seems very similar to the US system. When it comes to general health care, though, when it comes to your cost to stay in a hospital, when it comes to the cost of surgeries, when it comes to your prescription medications, when it comes to not prescription medication, to a point with prescription medications on what they can charge, we as Canadians are covered for those expenses. And that's part of the Healthcare Act. So when Rachel Notley was fear-mongering people saying, you're going to end up paying for healthcare, she's wrong. She's wrong. We do not pay for healthcare as Canadians. We pay for it in our taxes. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of it. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of it. But as of now, backtracking to Dina Hinshaw, as of now I will cover this story until we have full confirmation from... Now, Danielle Smith's office has said that it was fabricated, that it's not true. Once we have full explanation as to what the hell's going on, beyond that it's just fabricated, I'll keep you guys up to speed. We'll have a video on that. We'll see. We'll see. Let's get caught up in the chat here, guys. I was sitting there rambling. Suzanne coming into the stream. Suzanne, welcome in. How are you? Suzanne is such a great community member. Always the first to comment on my videos. Always saying hello. Suzanne, it's always nice to see you. Both my helicopter rides were life or death. The onboard doctors had to stay with me at the hospital until I was stable, then sign over care to a triage physician. Yes, and that helped. That while I'm glad to hear that they looked after you, it does hold them up. It holds them up from somebody else who might have had life or death needs. This is all civil war and war because of terrorism. Well, Michelle, welcome into the stream. In a way, it kind of is. Yeah. People are also using the ER as family doctor because of shortages. So that's part of... So Patty, I'll get to that in 1 second. Let me get caught up in the chat because I do agree with that. Totally different. Ambulatory patients can be transferred to a hospital-based medic. Well, now they can. Since February, they can. What's the cost of a human? Well, that's debatable these days. I did not enjoy the one chip challenge. That thing looked and tasted like mold. Made me throw up. Yes, Joe did the one chip challenge. Now, Joe did last longer than I, significantly longer than I did. Props to Joe. I saw what it did to you, and there's no way I'd put myself through that misery. You know what? It was for the means of entertainment. You know what? I'm glad everybody was entertained. I've told Clyde a million times over, while I talk about the tonsillitis and the strep and everything else, I'll take it like a good sport and say that I wimped out. I don't care. It was fun. It was fun, but crappy at the same time. I had emergency kidney surgery in 3 days in Red Deer instead of going to Edmonton 2 years ago. Well, I'm glad to hear. See, again, there are ways of getting around, but they're all doing nothing. They need to stop profiting off of death. Not only would have saved her pain, but it would decrease the load on our public system and reduce wait times for everybody. Yes, absolutely. In Winnipeg, the Maple Surgical Center, which I do know where that is pay for service. WC paid a ton for me to get shoulder surgery. And from what I understand in Winnipeg, it's very beneficial to have that option. There are some cases where it might be appropriate for people to desire a second opinion on their medical advice from someone they can trust. Absolutely. My father chose to die in hospice after 3 weeks in the hospital without any update or diagnosis. I'm sorry to hear that. End stage renal failure. He passed away peacefully and after 9 days, but boy, does our system suck. I agree. Very sorry to hear about that. Foam waving finger waving for Mr. Mayor. Well, I hope it's the right finger, not the middle one. But I'm sure, Suzanne, it's not. Thank you so much. Do we have hospice in Alberta? We do have palliative care. Palliative care is where my mother was when her cancer took hold, and ultimately where we said goodbye. And it sucks because during the pandemic, those people were just doing their jobs, and a lot of people that worked at palliative care were volunteer. So they're not all AHS appointed employees. And I've talked about it before, but it just, for anybody that's, it really sucked because like so once you go into palliative care, we know she's not coming out until she passes away. My father stayed there for 3 weeks. Didn't leave. The only time he would leave was to go home and have a shower and come back. And he only did it when he was confident that she wasn't going to go. And I would go daily. And I went into the palliative care center, and my mother's room was right next to the main entrance. She had a window right next to the main entrance. And if they were ever doing like a checkup or looking her over, and you know, she needed privacy, my father would always text me when he saw me coming in, or he'd meet me in the hallway coming in to let me know, you know, it's going to be a few minutes or whatever. And I arrived at the building, and just like every other time I'd gone to the building, you had to fill out this giant COVID questionnaire. You had to do, they had a little gun that they took your temperature with, kind of like they take the temperature at 7-Eleven on the taquitos and hot dogs and stuff, like a laser thermometer. And the batteries were gone. It wouldn't turn on. So she said, I'm going to go find another battery pack. And she took about 15 minutes to do so. And about 5 minutes into that 15-minute wait, my father called me and told me that my mom had just passed. And I was literally 10 feet away from her door and didn't get to say goodbye or be there for the thing that killed me the most was I wasn't there with my dad holding his hand and looking after him. I promised my mother that I would look after him. She meant everything to my father. My father is one of those, you ever see like the 90s Addams Family movies with Raul Julia? My dad is a lot like Gomez Addams. He was obsessed with my mother. She was his universe. So I sat with my mom about a week before she went into palliative care, and I told my mom, I'll look after him. And it really sucked that the first situation where he needed me, I wasn't there. And I blame the government for that. I blame these silly measures, these draconian measures on that. And what really sucked afterwards, my mom was always the person that if somebody needed something, the door was always open. She had Thanksgivings, Easters, Christmases. People would come take all of her Tupperware so they could take leftovers home. Drink all their booze. They didn't care. My mom was a very generous person. And when it came to her funeral, there was only so many people allowed in for a funeral, and those that were asked to come, even direct family members, stood back and said no because of COVID. And I took that personally. I was very angry for a long time. And I blamed them and said, you know, if it were any of you, my mother would have been there in a heartbeat and she wouldn't have second guessed it. But when it came time to burying her remains, her cremated remains with her family in Manitoba at her plot where she wanted to be buried, a lot of that family turned up outside because, well, we're outdoors and COVID can't get us. The big scary boogeyman can't get us. And I blew up. I blew up and said, how dare you all do this? And it felt like because it was in Manitoba and not in Calgary, people just didn't want to travel at the sake of worrying about the big bad coof. But because this was 2 hours away, people found it easier to be there and more convenient. And it kind of hurt. And looking back on it, I think it hurt because we were experiencing so much turmoil from years of being stuck in our homes, being blamed for being dirty, being told that, you know, we're unvaxxers, that we're horrible people, that we're abusing our children. And after years of my mom giving everything she had for her sisters, for my cousins, all these people to just not show up until it was convenient, kind of sucked. So COVID really brought out the worst, I think, in people and in general. And I'm not the only one, so I'm not going to sit here and tout on this and say this is the end of the universe. It's part of life, and I wasn't the only one who experienced this. And that's the sad part, is that there were hundreds of thousands of people that experienced the same kind of pain, and it resulted in suicides, addictions. And still to this day, people that are addicted to drugs, to alcohol, and our government doesn't want to do anything about it to fix it, except legalize harder drugs and bury the country even more. I think that's the one thing that sucks the most, is that my mom for years said, why are you writing these books? Why are you doing all this stuff? Why don't you focus on a real job? My wife was pregnant with our third and final child when we had him about 3 months before my mom passed away. Luckily, she got to hold him once before she got really sick. But she kept saying, why are you doing these things? Because you need to get a real job. You got 3 kids. You know, you got to focus on a bigger career. You got to look after your family. And I kept telling her, I know I'm meant to do better things and bigger things. And I think the success that came our way with how the Prime Minister stole freedom was bittersweet, but also very disappointing, because my father was very pro lockdown. He was one of those folks that he grew up in the 1950s, and he believed in the TV won't lie to you. The government won't lie to you. And no matter how many times I tried to explain to him the truth, the reality, he couldn't buy it. But it's kind of like the old saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I don't blame my father for that, because it's much like I've said, when you use words that people don't like, but you grew up in a certain generation, that's just that generation, right? So I don't want to blame him entirely. But when I told him I was writing a book about the Prime Minister and that it was going to take shots at COVID and pro freedom convoy, he says, no, don't do it. Don't. Why? People, you're going to embarrass yourself. People are going to get mad. People are going to everything else. And I remember when the book hit #1 and I went over to see him, and his neighbor came by. And the first thing my dad says is, have you met my son before? He's #1 selling author on Amazon. And the pride in his face, it really made me wish that my mom was there to see it, so that she knew everybody was going to be okay. Even to say that I'm running for mayor, like at first I thought it's a publicity stunt. It's just something I'm doing to get my name out there. And after talking to a few folks about actually making the announcement, it started to become apparent that, hey, maybe we can actually win this thing. And I remember talking with one of my mom's brothers, my uncle, when he came to visit, and he says, I heard you made an announcement you're going to run for mayor. And as soon as I started talking policy with him, he left my dad's house and said he's going to be mayor of Calgary. Now, that's not to say I'm going to be, or that I got an ego. It's just, it was good to see that reaction, but it would have felt so much better if my mom could have seen it. And I think that's one of my biggest regrets with the pandemic is that there were a lot of people out there that lost people that they're not going to be able to share the better parts of their life with. And I know Tech West mentioned his father earlier, and I know other people that have lost people to depression, that have lost people to the pandemic. And I'm just really sorry that anybody's had to go through that and experience that. Anyways, I'm rambling and we're making this like a therapy session, and we don't want to do that. We want to make these streams happy. We want to make the streams a fun place for everybody to be. So I kind of went off on a tangent talking about health services and palliative care and how health needs to work. And I think when it comes to healthcare, if I was in charge of healthcare, if I was Danielle Smith and I was in charge of healthcare for the province, I'd just be saying to those that are able to justify the rules or change the rules or put new bills forward, I'd be asking, what's the most beneficial for the people who live here? What's going to reduce wait times and get people looked after faster? And if that meant having to pay for something, or at least having the option, it's not mandatory to pay. And people seem to get upset when you offer those things and say, well, we're not saying that people can always afford this stuff, but at least it's there as an option. As Joe said earlier, if those who do have the money take those options, it puts less strain on the medical system. And it was mentioned earlier about people using ER doctors as personal doctors. And I wanted to get into that because, like, when my wife had our first child, she got an infection shortly after, and they told us, go to an emergency room. But of course, my daughter was only a few days old, about a week old. She hadn't developed an immune system yet. And we're sitting in this ER with sick people. Somebody came in from the bar after falling off a mechanical bull, and she sprained her ankle. And she was hobbling on it, but she was still putting pressure on her ankle. She easily could have waited until morning to go and see a walk-in or her regular doctor. But she came into the ER, and my wife sat there for 4 hours waiting to see a doctor for an infection, versus this person who got to go, for some reason, to the front of the line. They checked out her ankle. She was leaving 30 minutes later from the hospital. And I got frustrated going, why is it that the doctors are looking at her first? And it wasn't just because of my wife. I saw people there with rags on their faces to stop them from bleeding, and people who had, they looked pale and sick. And I'm going, why is this drunk moron coming in here for a stupid decision they made and getting care immediately while other people that need the care are being pushed to the back of the line? It doesn't make any sense. So forgive me for sounding like a capitalist, but if you can pay for something and speed up the process and it puts less strain on the system, I'm all for it. Again, it's not mandatory, right? It's not mandatory. Calgary is not the city it was when I was a kid. Calgary desperately needs a mayor again, like you, my friend. I appreciate that, Arthur. So I agree with that, and it's part of the reason I wanted to run for mayor. When I first moved to Calgary, I moved here in 1995. I grew up in Winnipeg, and I've said a million times over, because I'm a diehard Jets fan, Winnipeg will always be home. But Calgary is a city that I love. When I moved here, everything was bright, clean. Everybody was in a good mood. People would let you in when you're turning lanes. Like, it was kind of a unique place, and people were very friendly. And lately, like, I can't tell you how many times a year I have the conversation with my wife when she says, I don't know if I want to raise my children here anymore. There's a small town south of the city called Okotoks that I've got a few friends that live in. And my wife has said numerous times we should just move there. We should move out of the city, because I don't like the politics. I don't like safety. I don't like the way things are run. And I'll be completely honest. I talked with Jordan Peterson about running for mayor and said I wasn't sure. I talked to these counselors and told them my tweet was a joke. It was ultimately my wife who told me I don't feel that I could raise my children in this city. And she's lived in Calgary her whole life. And it was not the city that I came to in 1995 anymore. And as a father of 3, there is nothing I wouldn't do for my kids. And I would believe that with any other parent who's sitting there with their kids saying, these drag shows are horrible. I don't want my kids partaking in this. I don't want them being around it. The schools keep talking about it. The streets aren't safe. If I'm willing to do that for my kids, I'm willing to do it for everybody's kids. And that's primarily why I ran. I said I would give my kids everything I got. And that's why I wanted to run. Because I'm not getting into this for financial gain. I'm not getting into this to be a career politician or run federally or any of those stupid things that you usually see politicians do in a run. I'm doing this to make things better. Because not too long ago, my wife and I looked at our bills and said, we might lose our house because we can't afford big utility bills. We had weeks where we were feeding the kids Kraft dinner because we couldn't afford regular groceries. We were being priced out of everything that was a necessity. That when you factor in a car payment, insurance, cell phones, internet, property taxes, mortgage, it adds up. And people who are renting too, I don't know how they afford it. I don't know how they do it. Single parents, even parents who pay child support, I don't know how they do it. My mind is blown. So I look at all of that and I say, we need change. And if no one's going to step up to the plate, maybe instead of complaining about it, and that's my biggest problem, was I have friends over all the time and we talk about, oh, can you believe what's going on down at City Hall? Can you believe what's happening in this city? I'm so sick and tired of this. So let's do something about it. Clyde says it best. Do something. So that's what I've done. I've said, you know what? I got nothing to lose. So I'll do something. I'll put my money where my mouth is. And that is why I've said at the beginning of the stream, I say it now. If you're in any of these cities, if you're in a town where you're frustrated with this stuff, run. Find a way to run. Bring your ideas to the table. All we need is good ideas and good people to back them. And in any city, cities like Vancouver, where they say, look at the tent cities, look at Hastings. They're not beyond saving. You just need the right people. Get rid of all of these career politicians, these bureaucrats. And there was a tennis, I think it was tennis fan or something at the beginning of the stream. They all said, well, voting doesn't help. If you had like-minded people running that wanted to get rid of these bureaucrats and everybody voted for them, voting does help. That's where voting helps. It puts new, fresh butts in the chairs and gets policies driven. It's what's needed. The transit system in Calgary is worse than Vancouver's. That's a shame. So the transit system in Calgary, Danielle Smith had to step in and fix that problem because our mayor doesn't want to do it. She has to hire more police because Jody Gondek wants to defund them. Now, the police sat at the train stations when they made the announcement they were hiring more police. The police were at the train stations handing out tickets to the homeless all day, and I looked at it and said, what good is that going to do? They can't pay them. You're just going to write the ticket and they'll be on their way. They'll be back at the station a few hours later. And the biggest problem, when the police are chasing them away from the train stations, they'll make their way into the neighborhoods. We go up to our local neighborhood park. We live about a 10-minute walk from a train station. And you go to our neighborhood park, and now there's homeless people sleeping on the benches at the park because they can't hang out at the stations. The problem isn't giving out fines. I told my wife when she said, you know, I've gone to the station every day this week to go to work. There's cops at the stations. They're handing out fines. I said, it's all a smoke and mirror show. They'll be there for a couple of weeks. They'll show a presence and then they'll be gone. And sure enough, you go down to the stations now. I don't see any cops there now. But a month later, I don't see any police. You'll probably see them during Stampede season because we have a lot of tourists and they'll want to show a presence that, hey, we care. No, they don't. I've even said a number of times that if I win this mayor seat, I'm doing an audit of the police service. I don't care if I have to fire a handful of cops. Hire ones that want to do the job. Michelle, welcome into the stream. What do you think of Bitcoin? I don't know enough about Bitcoin. I don't know really a lot about Bitcoin, so I don't really throw my hat into that ring. Just because I'd rather know what I'm talking about. So I'm really sorry if that doesn't satisfy your answer. I just, I don't know enough about it. I really don't. I raised my 14-year-old boy on zero income other than child tax. I qualify for welfare and disability and refuse to take government handouts. I sell stuff and we do okay. I'm happy to hear that, Suzanne. Really happy to hear that. Happy to hear that you make it work. And that says a lot about somebody's character. I tell my kids all the time, and I've said it here before on stream, the most valuable thing you have in your life is your name. It says everything about you. Your character, what you're like as a person. And as soon as you tarnish that, it's all downhill. Because it takes so much work to try and change how your name is seen. I have a lot of respect for anybody who tries to do what they can with what they got versus the people I have seen and know that are close to this family that, well, I'm voting for the NDP because they're going to give me handouts. They're going to give me paid people to come over and clean my house and do this and that. Get out of here. Get a job. This is one of the most easiest provinces in the country to walk out the door if you're willing to work and get a job. You may not like the job you're going to get, but at least you can make a living if you wanted to. There are cities in this world where there are people desperate to work and they cannot find work. Alberta is the land of opportunity, even when things are down. You could find a job here if you're willing to work. I hate it so much when I hear people say, "Oh, I can't make ends meet." So what do you do all day? Will I sit here and beg for money? Then stop. Go get a job. Lots of places that would hire people. Megan, I'd be happy to talk about Bitcoin anytime. I'm in Clyde's Discord. Yes, Megan is very well versed in Bitcoin. I've talked to her about NFTs before, and I've tried to kind of get my head around those things. I'm not very tech savvy. So Megan, it's not you. It's it takes a lot for me to take those things in and understand them. But definitely, if you're looking for info on Bitcoin, hit up Megan because she is very knowledgeable. She works in crypto and, yeah, she can get you some good advice. Too many lazy people out there. I sell home cooking, baking. I paint pictures and sell them. Look at my avatar as a self-portrait. You know what, Suzanne? Hit me up. I think you follow me on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. I might commission you to do a painting for my arcade. Maybe we'll do something along those lines. We'll get you some income on a commission painting. So hit me up in the DMs on Twitter, and or even if you're in Clyde's Discord, hit me up on Discord. We'll get something going. I'd love to get some artwork down here. Leighton Trick, welcome into the stream. I was born in Brandon, Manitoba, moved to Calgary when I was 5. I remember when I was a kid and the rule was get home before the streetlights are on. Now I'd never let my kid run around like that. It's funny you say that. Now, Brandon, go Wheat Kings. I love Brandon. My mom's buried in Wawanesa, which is just east of Brandon. I got a lot of family around there. Yeah, I was the same. When I was a kid, it was go out, ride your bike. Every Friday after school, I'd hop on my bike. Because I'd cut the grass for my folks every week, walk my dog a couple times a day. I'd get an allowance, and my allowance covered me enough to go to the video store, rent a Nintendo game, and then I'd stop at 7-Eleven, get a Slurpee and a bag of chips or something, and then I'd spend my weekend playing video games and enjoying myself with my friends. But the same thing, we'd go outside when we weren't playing video games, and it was just be home when everybody else is going home when the street lights come on. My daughter now wants to go outdoors. She's going to be 9 in August, and she's got a friend a couple doors down, and it's, well, we're going to go to the park. Now the park is just down the road from our house, but because of the homeless and riffraff, I'll call it. Now I don't want to sound judgmental, but when we have security problems and they want to go to the park by themselves, it's harder for me as a parent to have that trust to say, sure, go ahead, because I don't know what they're going to be facing when they go there. So it's difficult. I have a 9-year-old girl that wants her freedom. And as a parent, I want to give her that freedom, but I also feel like I'm being neglectful of consequences if I let her go based on what I know of the world. And it's a different universe. It's tough. It's tough. I don't envy you for having the same problem, but glad you mentioned it, because I wholeheartedly agree. My family used to sell, is it chiffon cakes, if I'm pronouncing that right? And Avon, Regal, etc. at farmers market. My mom and I used to clean houses also. So my wife used to do that. My wife, her father was very abusive. And when my mother-in-law left, my wife's father, he took everything. He took their house. He took all the money. They lived in the Calgary Women's Shelter for several months. And my wife at 13 used to go and clean foreclosed homes with my mother-in-law. Now, my mother-in-law went to school, worked 2 jobs, and raised 5 kids on her own and built her way back. And I have tremendous respect for my mother-in-law. Anytime I think that my life is tough, I just remember what she's gone through and realize that my life ain't looking so bad. But props. This is great. I love reading this stuff because it's great to hear that people, don't want to just accept nothing. They'll go and do something to change their situation. I'm just trying to get back up and running again, so need lots still to get there and need supplies, pans, mixer, etc. Well, hopefully it goes well for you, Michelle. I really do. Let me know when you got it up and running. Let me know when you guys got it up and running. Let me know where you're at. If you guys ever have anything like that and you want to plug on the channel, let me know. I'm happy to plug that stuff. Get people in your area supporting what you're doing. Yeah. Timo jumping in. I would love to see kids outside more because I don't see them anymore. I'd love to see kids outside too, but I'm too worried that, there's pervs out there. She's 9. She looks so tiny. Listen, my little Harley Quinn is a spitfire. I don't know. She certainly doesn't have her dad's attitude because she can hold her own. You know what? I feel kind of good about the fact that we named her Harley Quinn because she definitely has an attitude to go with it. I'm never worried so much about her handling her own. It's more what she's going to be faced with that I worry about. But that's the job of a father, right? The Sylvan pedal murder is still large with no lead. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. Sylvan is a nice, if you're talking Sylvan Lake, Alberta. My mother-in-law lives in Sylvan, and that is a town I've often said I would love to move there. I go up there every summer. Usually I'll rent a Sea-Doo for a couple hours, take the kids out on the lake. My mother-in-law's got a kayak up there, and it's just a beach town. I love the beach town. In Manitoba, I used to go to a place called Grand Beach, which is kind of near. Well, I guess you could call it Lake Winnipeg area. Grand Beach was awesome. Lake life was big and abundant in Manitoba. It's the province of lakes, and all my friends had cabins. Their parents would go there every year. So, I mean, moving to a beach town for me would be where it's at. But I hear there's a lot of problems in Sylvan with drugs, and that's part of the reason I just can't bring myself to go there. I was in Edmonton a few months ago for 9 months. Okay. I have 5 schools within 3 blocks of my house. Maybe 4 or 5 kids walk by. Many cars and buses go by. So it's funny you mentioned that. So my kids in Calgary at their school, whether it's either a daycare or a parent is required to drop the kids off every single day and required to pick up. The teachers, like when my son comes out of school, he's in the first grade. And when he comes out of school, the teacher looks for me before she'll let him come out the doors and come to me. It's really bizarre because, again, when I grew up as a kid, my school was about a 15-minute walk from the house. I'd ride my bike to school. I would walk in the winter. And I think by grade 1, I was doing it on my own. Definitely second grade. And, really cold days because it was Winnipeg. Like my mom would pick me up and stuff like that. But the majority, I'd find my own way to and from school, and it was trusted. You could say to your kids, go get to school. Not so much now. It's weird how the schools run it in Calgary. One of the parents was saying it sucks. I'll tell you what sucks is that a lot of the moms in my neighborhood have nothing better to do. So like they'll park outside my kid's school half an hour before the school even gets out, before the kids are dismissed. So every day I have to go and sit for almost 40 minutes just so I can get a parking spot in order to pick up my kids. It really sucks. It sucks because that's 40 minutes a day. And when you chalk that up over 5 days in a week, that's roughly 3.5 hours out of a week you're sitting outside that could be used for many other things. It's at 14, I became a construction worker. I just wanted to build things. Wow, that's great. I got good looking kiddos. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We celebrated my sons. So all of my kids are named after superheroes, first and middle names. So I have a Steve Rogers, Wade Wilson, and a Harley Quinn. Steve's birthday was last week. We celebrated him turning 3, which was part of the reason my videos were delayed last week. I took the night off. Usually I do my YouTube videos at night. We had a good night. We took him out. We got him some cake. Went to his favorite hot dog place and got dinner. And he had a good birthday. We played with some water guns outside. Really good. Freedom Honey, Mike at Freedom Honey walking in. How you doing? Welcome to the stream. This is the land of milk and honey. You just need to wake up early and get it. Absolutely. Well, there's 24 hours in a day. How you use them is up to you. And it's funny because I used to be the 9 to 5 guy. I used to say, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to do my job. When I get home, it's family time. But since last year, I don't think I've had a single day where I haven't been working now because I'm either doing YouTube or I'm doing online marketing or I'm writing new books all over the place. It's crazy the way things are now, but that's okay because opportunity is abundant. So it's Patty saying my daughter's 34. It never changes. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Sun and Dagger, hope I'm not too late. You're never too late. Welcome into the stream. How you doing? It's I miss going to Okanagan Lake every year. One place I'm going this summer. So part of what I'm looking forward to this summer, I've taken I'm taking a week off in July to take my kids to northern Idaho. We're going to go to Silverwood theme park and Coeur d'Alene and Spokane area. I've heard they got really nice lakes around there. So I'm Coeur d'Alene especially. I've heard they got a lot of boating there. I'd really, or not Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene. I heard they got a big lake. I'd love to maybe rent a boat or something and get the kids out there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because for a few days, I'm not going to have to be on social media. And I'll take my first break. And then 6 weeks after that, we're taking the kids down to Disney. And it's still funny. I still talk to people that are, well, you do all these videos bashing Disney and you talk about the woke stuff and you're going to take your kids. And I go, well, they don't see it. The age they're at, they don't see the woke stuff. So I'll give you an example. We went and saw the new Spider-Verse movie on Friday. I noticed a lot of the woke stuff in the background of that movie. My kids don't notice any of it. They're just entertained for a few hours. So I kind of think that's well within, I can put away my perceptions of the woke stuff, of the agendas, of everything that's going on. And I know people say, well, don't give them your money. Well, After 3 years of being locked in the house and my kids losing their grandmother, I think they need a break. So I don't mind this as a one-off. Would I take them every year or every 2 years or what? No, certainly not. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with giving those guys my money. But yeah, Coeur d'Alene, looking forward to that lake. I've heard Silverwood's a really cool place. If anybody's been to Silverwood, let me know in the chat. Because I've never been. My brother-in-law's been a couple times. I just know it's like a 7-hour drive from where I am, I think. And I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be really cool. Your opinion on the government not able to stop government. See where I'm frustrated. If you ever go to Penticton, hit me up. I'll get you great room rates. I appreciate that, Suzanne. I haven't been to Penticton, God, in a long time. But gorgeous, gorgeous town. Bewitched was my favorite show growing up. I named my daughter Samantha after her. My Samantha married a Darren. Oh my God. Well, that's funny. Bewitched was great. The movie, not so much. The Will Ferrell movie, that was a disaster. I think who played the Samantha? I think it was Nicole Kidman, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been Nicole Kidman. Speaking of Disney. One thing I seen this week, and again, it got me really concerned. Because this is one thing I will not be partaking in when I take my kids to Disney, if it's still happening. There's been a lot of outrage and boycott coming on with Disney. So they have the Bippity Boppity Boutique at Disney, where it's essentially like a beauty parlor for children. I believe you have to be 12 and under to go in there. And you go in, it's the only time you're allowed to wear a princess dress at Disney if you're not like a cast member, I guess, or somebody who works there as a princess. They don't want people dressing up in the park. But you go in there, you get your nails done, your hair done, you get these dresses. And my wife really wanted to take my daughter in there. But now we have, which, I mean, is it any surprise with Pride this month? They have a man who looks very scary dressed up at the Bippity Boppity Boutique, that they're now called Fairy Godmother's Apprentices or something like that. Full makeup. I mean, this isn't just somebody wearing women's clothes. He's in full makeup. And not only, so what scares me the most about this guy, he's got his little iPad here. When he takes a child into the store, he takes them around and spends a couple hours with them. He does their hair. He does their nails. He helps them pick out clothes. Now, they don't change in front of him. But, like, look, I'm all for tolerance. I'm all for... If somebody said to me, you know, I like being around kids and doing these things. I take it like, okay, if I went in on Pride Month and there was a gay man in the store just saying, I don't have any kids, but I love watching kids be happy, whatever else, I'd say good for, I'm happy for them that they can watch this and partake in it. But this is pushing the envelope, because this isn't the gay community. This is, hi, we want to influence your children. We want to expose your kids. We want to corrupt them. I don't agree with it. So it says here, so my name is Nick. I'm one of the Fairy Godmother's apprentices, is how he introduces himself. Everyone on the right needs to be boycotting Disney and everything they own, from the parks, movies, Disney Plus companies like Anheuser-Busch, North Face, and Target are despicable, but what they've done pales in comparison to what Disney is guilty of. And of course, this happens just as I've finalized all of our trips, our plans. Now, my kids don't know that we're going to Disney. I've told them that we're going to Vancouver, so that when they see the ocean, they think we're in Vancouver. Because we're not going to tell them we're going to Disney until we actually get to the hotel or drive past Disney to get into the hotel, for two reasons. One, we wanted it to be a surprise. Second, if I tell them we're going to Disney, they're not going to go to bed the night before. And our flight leaves at like 6 a.m. the next day, which means we have to be at the airport by like 4 in the morning. And if my kids don't go to bed, that's going to suck. That is really going to suck. Part of what I've been tweeting out in that aspect with Pride Month going on, and I wanted to talk about it here. This was in St. Catharines, Ontario. This drag show going on in the park in St. Catharines, Pride in the Park. You see a little kid come up and tip the stripper while he's dancing. And then he lifts his leg and exposes his nizzos, his testicles. He exposes, there it is, sticking right out of his underwear. They even got a close-up. There it is, right for everyone to see. And not a mention of it. Now, of course, I post that it's disgusting, but what I find afterwards is this artwork that was on sale right next to the stage. Now, keep in mind, children were here. And I won't stay on here for too long just because of YouTube and their guidelines. But here's a woman in another woman's crotch. Sexual positions all over the place going on. A woman with her legs spread open. Sitting on someone's face. Like it's just uncalled for. This was art on sale. On sale. Now, one thing I can agree with is at least some people jumped in. Here it is. Okay, Tubby, just keep preaching hate and intolerance to your kids. Good luck with getting your projected vote total of your weight. And just, son, just so you're clear, I'm imagining, that's about 275 to 300. Well, you're way off. I'm below 250. But, I mean, this is... I had some members from the gay community that have actually chimed in on that have said this shouldn't be happening to kids. And I'm happy to see that. I've actually been in touch with a member of the Alberta branch of Gays Against Groomers about when the mayoral race kicks off. I want to do like a promo or a cut video of myself along with a lot of the community to show that, hey, I'm not being negative towards the gay community. I have no issues with the gay community. We want the same goal, which is get these guys away from our kids. I just think it's so unacceptable and disgusting. When you see it at Disney, when you see it with this, Pride Month is now going to be a very scary month. Just because of what's out and around and what's being considered acceptable. When I took my kids to see Spider-Man on Friday, we popped into Indigo Books, which is right next door to the movie theater. And we had a few minutes to kill. And lo and behold, when I walk in the store, front and center, let's get this back up on the screen. James, people can be so mean. I really don't care. I don't look. They can say whatever they like. It doesn't affect me. I don't care. It's and what's weight got to do with it? Apparently that's people's go-to. It's just easy. It's an easy jab, I guess, at people. I really don't care. I don't give a damn because they're just pissed off. So here's I go into Chapters Indigo Books to kill some times before taking my kids to the movies. This is sitting front and center in the kids section with a plethora of race shaming and pride books. And I said, I'm glad they don't sell my books here. I won't be buying their products. I don't care if people celebrate pride. Stop grooming our children. Who is RuPaul? And of course, on the front cover, RuPaul is a man. The traditional RuPaul in the mirror. And of course, you can see it right here next to that. Who is Rosa Parks? Sitting right next to it. Now, off to the side, there were all these pride books. It was My Grandfather's Pride. What is Pride Month? All these white shaming books. and they were abundant. It wasn't just one or two, and it wasn't like they dedicated a whole front table to this woke content. And my wife and I literally turned around and walked out of the store. And an employee said, "Was there something we could help you with?" And we just said, "No, no." And my wife turned around and said, "What you're doing there in the kids section is disgusting." And the lady looked at us like we were jerks, and we just kind of turned about and left. It's disgusting. It's what they're doing to kids is absolutely disgusting. But one thing I was happy to see over the weekend that I wanted to share, and where I was going to say, I got in touch with some folks here from Gays Against Groomers. So I've said here, I stand with you. The community has been hijacked by those that wish to harm and inflict damage against the vulnerable. Which they said, I reclaim the flag and I burned the ideologies, the sterilization of children and vulnerable people, and I'm taking a stand, says Duchess Lois of Alberta. And I wholeheartedly agree. I love this video. I love what they're saying in this video, because this is exactly what people have been saying with the whole LGB no T. It's damaging to them as a community that these people piggyback just for the sake of anonymity to be told that if you disagree with them, you're phobic. You know, you can't say anything mean against these people. And by hiding behind the gay community, they feel like it gives them immunity or something. And I'm happy to see this, because anytime I've spoken up about it, I'm told, well, you're phobic, you're against gay people. No, not at all. Not at all. I've said it a million times over. I think gay people have the right to be married and miserable just like the rest of us. So all the power to them. I'm happy if they're happy. Live your best life as long as you're not hurting anybody is always my philosophy. But what you can see here is clearly they're hurting children. They're causing mental damage to children, convincing them to take these puberty blockers and sterilize themselves. When there was a study done that showed, I think it was something like 88%. We talked about this on the last week's stream. 88 or 90% of people that were questioning their gender did a study and said that had they not have been approached about puberty blockers, about trans, about any of that, they would have just grown up and been gay. So what's wrong with that? Why does it have to be this whole event and this whole thing that you have to change your whole identity? Why can't you just be gay? It's like they're criminalizing being gay now in order to be something higher up on the poll. And it's terrible. Megan jumping in, really, they're hiding behind ethics and human rights committees and not the law. And now the law, yes. Wholeheartedly agree. That's how they planned it. Where if we open our mouth, we're suddenly against it. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I became friends with a woman that trans to a man, bottom surgery and all, and she is speaking out against it and says no to children on blockers and no to surgery. She's working with Matt Walsh. I'm glad to hear that. I've seen photos online, like very graphic photos of what the end result is from this surgery. It's horrible. It's horrible. I can't imagine anybody going through that and being happy when it's done. And what happens if you change your mind? You can't. You can't. You mean gay. There you go. Don't read what I say out loud. Sometimes it's bad. Well, I mean, whatever. The trans people I know are all against the woke stuff. And that's kind of the so the impression that I get, especially if you go over to a group like Gays Against Groomers. We showed a video last week where a guy went in front of his city and said that he wasn't represented by this flag, that the flag is imposters, and he can't stand behind it because of the image that it gives the gay community, that they're being mocked and ridiculed. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think part of the bigger problem here, and when people say, well, you're against the gays, I'm standing up for them, with them, to say this select small group of people have hijacked their ideologies for the sake of making a mockery out of them in order to gain protection, to put their kinks on display for people and turn society into a clown world. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. Her life has been ruined. My heart is breaking for her. I'm sorry to hear that. 60% of them who use the meds commit suicide or are depressed. Ben Shapiro discusses it. Yes. And that's the problem, is that these studies are starting to come out now. It's the same as I said during the COOF when we were talking about the hokey pokey and the long-term effects, and studies come out now showing otherwise. Whereas with this, studies are now starting to come out where you say all these people are so quick to jump on these things without thinking about it because it's the new hip thing to do. And what they don't realize is there's long-term effects for those decisions. And they get to a point where, yes, hitting the old Alt F4 on their life seems to be the solution to their problems. And it's horrible. Jordan Peterson talks about gender dysphoria extensively and how it needs to be treated. It's not to say somebody can't be gay or somebody can't have their preferences, but it's how they're going about it, how they view society as a whole that's damning to their mental health. Crazy. Alex Stein did a study and discovered 75% of small communities on just have been exploited. Absolutely. Drunken Cooking. You're obviously shadow banned. I'm sorry. You should have many more watching. Quality stream, quality background. It just doesn't make sense. That's okay. The thing is, it's the same thing as my mayoral run. I don't want to put out content that's just going to make the censors happy. We have to be about truth. We have to speak our truth, or else this world's never going to change. Never going to change. Can't be treated when doctors are powerless to do anything but affirm trans beliefs. Well, and that's and that's something we'd have to get into at great length. And again, it's kind of a loaded subject because there's so many different arguments that could be made in favor of it. But at the end of the day, June is turning into quite a crazy month when it comes around this stuff, because not only is it being discussed, but it's being propped up on a higher level. And part of the reason for it, I'd almost keep my kids indoors, hoping that, they don't have to partake or see any of this, because it's crazy. And there are times where I'm doing research or something and I'll have all my equipment out here and my kids will come down and they'll see like the drag stuff happen. And my kids look at it and they say, what the hell is that? And I'll just tell them it's just some people, don't worry about it. But they don't take to it, and I don't want them to take to it. And hopefully when we go to Disney, we don't see any of that stuff like I was showing earlier. Because God, we'll literally just go somewhere else in the park. It's yikes. Anyways, folks, Drunken Cookie said it's now called a season. Well, next it'll be a year. Next they'll take a year or half a year or something. Who knows? You give an inch, take a mile. Ladies and gents, that's going to wrap up tonight's stream. We are getting a little deep into the rabbit holes. It's been fun though. It's been a great stream. One thing I want to remind everybody before you go, if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Join our channel, turn on your bell for notifications, despite the fact that we don't seem to get people in on our streams. They aren't being informed, but hit it anyways just to make sure. If you want to support the stream, our memberships are open now. And again, they're not required. I'm just letting people know because people have asked. Memberships are open, and I will be adding perks to those memberships as time goes on. I'm kind of looking for pointers as to what people would like as perks in the membership, whether it's once a month private chat in a Discord or something along those lines. But if you really want to pick up some cool stuff, you can check out our new gear with our new Unacceptable Fringe logo. Like I said, I've ordered a whole bunch of this stuff, and I'll be wearing it on stream as soon as it arrives. I think it turned out really well, and I'm excited to see how it comes out. But if you guys want some cool Fringe shirts to join our small Fringe minority, you can head over to our store. It should be beneath the stream or beneath one of our videos with a link. It's always at unacceptablefringe.myspreadshop.ca. I believe they're having a sale right now too. They were 20% off last week. I don't know if they're still off, but we don't have. I see Cartree asking, "What's the Discord?" We don't have a Discord yet, but I'm thinking of making a Discord. We'll find a way to get something up and running. As well, again, folks. As for signed copies of the book, I'll have something arranged this week to have a solution for that, so people can start ordering some signed copies if they want them. Great stream, guys. Really great turnout. I'm really happy to see everybody who comes to hang out in our little small fringe minority here on the good old chats and put their 2 cents in. It's always great to chat with you guys. I hope you guys have a great week. I look forward to bringing you my videos this week, and have a good one. Stay safe. Enjoy some weather. If you're getting nice weather, get outside, get some sun, and then come in and watch our videos. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.